If you push the metaphor a bit further, you can also think of a website like a house that has also this feeling of space, but when you enter it, but also a website has all these hidden technologies to make it function. Like a house has also like pipelines, electricity that you don't see that are hidden behind the walls. And you also move from one room to another, like you move from one space, one page to another on a website.
So why did we get together, actually?
First, because we met one day, which was in school, in the art school in Gerritzen Academy in Amsterdam, when we studied. You were studying, is that stupid to say? You were studying inter-architecture and I was studying graphic design, and we started a band.
We had a band actually called Tuo Cuore Mia Lingua. It lasted for one day, one evening, and then it died.
Yeah.
And then
I wanted to learn coding to make my website after graduating, and I found this boot camp, and I I went through the interviews and stuff and all this process, and then I went to the gym, and that's when I met you again after graduation.
Yeah.
And I told you about this coding school.
Yeah.
And it was an epiphany for you.
It was the opening of the season, a very long season. But yeah, that's where I actually had the gut feeling that I should also start learning how to code. But also because I was flirting with the field kind of before, but then being focused on different kind of bachelor studies, didn't have so much time to nourish that. But it was also nice to kind of like, because you were also like so enthusiastic about it, and having also, it didn't make me doubt about like what I pursued as my studies, that it's not going to fit, you know, because I also saw there like a crack in coding as well, that it can be definitely combined with my architectural knowledge.
For sure. It makes totally sense.
Yeah. So then we also did this
coding school
together.
Which was half a disaster, half
pleasure
but
and painful,
hope.
Like
painful,
bittersweet
sure.
experience.
And we were very frustrated, and also started to define what in the coding field we wanted to dig into.
Yeah.
Because we were,
Yeah, it was very like commercially oriented as well. That is kind of like, was a training to join the maintenance market mainly of the tech industry, debugging and stuff like that.
What I thought being a web developer was just about doing HTML, CSS and JavaScript. But then we discovered that there was a huge society under this cave hole of web development.
Yeah, but also that interfaces can be a cultural domain, that it's kind of like a social imaginary as well, where people meet and you kind of set certain goals together, and it's always that it can be a collaboration, not like that the web developer is somebody who solves the problem of translating what online, you know?
Exactly. And there are much more hybrid formats than that.
Exactly. Okay, so I'm going to start with a little intro. The internet is a cultural domain. Interfaces are a social imaginary. We found each other connecting conceptually and ethically about mutual coding practice. We got excited as well as hopeless together.
We wondered, what is a good website? Is a good website one that clashes with its neighbor websites or open in the other tabs? Or is a good website designed perfectly with a good amount of disharmony and familiarity? Is a good website one that makes me angry? And we concluded that a good website for us is one that makes us feel something, that's memorable. And since 2018, we collected a list of memorable websites, and we're going to present a selection of them, which represents our discomforts, but mainly our comforts on the internet.
Definitely. Mainly the comfort.
Yeah.
And today we want to review these websites and tell a story of a different internet than the one that accommodates our daily user experience. And we also websites can be a lot of things, from social networks to e-shops to business vitrines, institutional platforms, educational websites, entertainment websites, forums, blogs, artist portfolios, web art, and sometimes mixes of all of them. So like hybrid formats. But the ones that we selected, so like we kind of chose, we have memorable websites and we kind of titled the category behind each, but it's not necessarily that we present per every category that we just mentioned.
Yeah, and we're gonna start with the website that we agreed summarizes our discomforts on the internet.
Definitely.
So,
Totally.
So it's called howIexperienceWebToday.com.
Yeah.
So basically, when you arrive on the website, you arrive on a search bar that obviously looks quite like a browser search, like Google. And you click on it, and then comes all these windows that appear on most of the websites, where you have to accept cookies, allow notifications, ad blocker should be disabled, and so on. Subscribe to the newsletter.
So every time you press something, there is another window popping up to like every action that you make on this website leads to more ads or like more agreements that you have to comply to.
Exactly. And it's all the graphic and navigation noises that we encounter on a lot of websites today, and which make for us internet quite of a boring place, or of where you feel quite alienated or passive, because you always close all these windows and being passive and not looking at anything, and just like trying as fast as possible to enter the website.
Yeah. What I also like about it is that you have to make so many steps until you get to the content.
Yeah.
And then
it's painful.
I just got a window that says you scrolled. It seems like you are interested in our content. I never saw this one, actually. No, me neither. And then actually there is no content really. It's just like boxes and asking for rating, chatbots, feedback.
It looks like an actual website. It looks familiar.
Yeah, it looks super familiar. I think this mostly reminds like of publishing platforms and social media networks as well. And then there's
news websites.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where you don't have to pay for.
So this website represents our discomforts, but we don't want to talk too much about our discomforts on the internet, right?
I think this is pretty clear. It summarizes it well. And
exactly. And actually, what I wanted to say, what I love about this website,
it's about the web developer.
About the web developer, with whom I had a chance to exchange emails a bit. Guangi Lee, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he made this website. For me, it's kind of like just as an artistic expression, because he also told me that he works in a company and he's a full-time front-end web developer. And then I asked him, why did you make it? And he said, just to literally express how I experience web today. And that's why the URL is called like that as well. But also, like, in terms of tools and technologies, he used like the basic tools to build any kind of website, which is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, a bit of jQuery. He revealed that information as well.
Great.
Which is amazing. And also, like, I think it got quite popular, and I think he didn't express it. And then I also asked him if he has more of these kind of websites, and he was creating something simple, but he doesn't have time to work on these kind of like web artistic expressions, which is a pity. But if I'm gonna keep an eye on him, remind him, give us more.
Yeah.
And now we're gonna do memorable.
We're gonna go through our list, basically.
The list that is, now we entered our comfort zone, right? Like our feeling of safety on the internet.
The websites that give us hope.
Hopeful websites, exactly. So we have Queering the Map as the first one.
Yeah. Which we consider as social network. Another form of social network.
So it's a website that has the map of the world, like I guess it's Google Maps, but then you can contribute to it, and it collects queer stories of queer stories, queer experiences, first kisses, falling in love from all over the world, and it's kind of like marking the world with queerness, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like the contributions are completely anonymous.
Of course, super personal as well.
Super personal. And what I also like is that they're not really long. And it's also like when I think about, and you can contribute, and basically it's very simple. You just click on the location of your story, share your story in the text box below, and add it on the map. And what I kind of like, also besides the physical connotation that like you literally mark a territory with your story, the accessibility of it is also that it makes me think about good data and bad data, you know, because I think today as users, we are super conscious about giving our data to certain platforms. And this one kind of makes me think that I don't mind giving this kind of data, you know, like it kind of gives me personal values in what good data and bad data is somehow. What I also like is that that it's not always necessarily a well-defined queer story that makes it like, oh, this needs to be like such a pumped up style really so that it fits the title as well. Some are just there to mark the territory more than tell a story, actually.
Yeah.
And some just say like snippets of I was here and not necessarily elaborate on what happened when the people were there.
And it's not only cheerful romantic stories, it's sometimes also experiences of homophobia. Also sometimes it's more hopeful messages that are put in countries where queer rights are not recognized.
We can go to Bosnia actually straight away.
Came out, got bullied, ran away, and I haven't looked back since.
Yeah. That's first tough. One that we click immediately. But it's also, I mean, for me, coming from Bosnia, like looking at this, I was surprised actually to see that there are contributions, that this kind of internet is also accessible in Bosnia, you know?
Yeah, it's amazing that this website got so popular.
And you see like this, it's just like a wink. Yeah. It's not a story or anything. It's just, I'm going to mark this territory.
And sometimes the messages are a bit like, oh, I hope this person is going to remember that this happened. It's a bit of a love letter that's anonymous.
Yeah. But I also wonder, like, once you drop it there, do you also, can this website also be a processing mechanism, you know? That like you give this, you share something and then you're like, okay, I forget the story or something.
You mean of...
that it can be like
help you to understand, also process what just happened. Or
yeah, exactly. Like
so
just
to give
process.
It out to the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyhow, we have a lot to share, so let's move on. Do you wanna? Oh yeah, this is. And you would love to talk about the next one.
Which one? The click?
Oh yeah. No, so
shall we move? Because you mentioned this thing of private and public data, and we thought was maybe relevant to share this website, which also shows how the computer can collect data, which is based not on information that you type in a box, let's say telling a story, but it's more data that the computer collects from your interaction with the computer itself.
The invisible data that we don't
realize, and that can be data for analytics, to trace the user experience, how people interact with, for example, an e-shop, and click on what button do they click, because that's super important, how many clicks there is to enter a page or check out a page. So this website has this statement with this huge button in the middle.
The only button. Well,
and you are supposed to interact as much as you can. And on the top right, you can see your achievements. in a percentage. And so already just entering the website, you achieved 63%.
Yeah, and it's always 63, right?
It's always 63. But if
you keep on clicking the button,
I think it's 100 times. It's
kind of like this feedback experience that it gives you something and makes you want to click more.
Exactly.
Maybe if you...
Let's look at the achievements.
Yeah.
It's going to be more clear.
So
those are all the actions we've made without necessarily noticing them or tracking them. And the gray ones are the ones we haven't achieved yet. So for example, you click the button 100 times, not done yet. You double right clicked on the button. So let's check that.
I'm not sure if this is actually...
Clicks are shorter than most other subjects. Strike fast. Yeah, click.
So we got 1% more.
Yeah.
What is this subject trying to do?
I love the voice.
But it's kind of like this entertainment website in a way.
Yeah.
But what I love is how it represents kind of like the things that as users we don't think about, like these interactions, and also how this kind of user behavior was already pre-programmed, so they already predicted that this is what's going to happen when you only have one button on the website.
Exactly.
And then they already call it as like achievements,
Exactly.
That you have to always kind of like, okay, enough. That you also kind of like, this is what they also think of user, that is kind of like achiever, and you have to interact and activity and create metrics behind it. But we don't want to get too deep about that because we're still on the hopeful side of the internet.
So our website is a room.net that we also considered actually as a social network where you can contribute and share your website. So it's a platform that's separated in two. So on the left is the research of the person who created the website called Nancy Wu. And on the right is an archive of websites. And the topic of this website is basically a collection of websites that the creators considered close to a room. So like a space, like considering the website as a space that's more quiet, slow, in order, and that you as a web developer, for example, you can customize and arrange the way that feels very intimate and personal. And I really appreciate this website because I like already this metaphor of considering website as spaces that you enter, that you get an immediate feeling when you enter a website. If it has been created with care, or if a website has a special ambient when you enter, if it feels like a villa or like a rat hole.
Basement.
Yeah. And also, if you push the metaphor a bit further, you can also think of a website like a house that has also this feeling of space, but when you enter it, but also a website has all these hidden technologies to make it function. Like a house has also like pipelines, electricity that you don't see, that are hidden behind the walls, and that you need those technologies.
Yeah, to make it functional.
Exactly. And you also move from one room to another, like you move from one page to another on a website.
But I also like how this website is also a room.
Yeah,
that is kind of like promoting the users or like creators to contribute with a website that feels like a room. So it's more like
a living room,
like an archive. Yeah, it really is like a living room. It's or like even a corridor somehow. That is like its function is to be an archive of all of these websites that feel like a room, but it also feels like a room itself because it's nice to, or maybe like a public space. I don't know.
Maybe the space you share with your flatmates, and or maybe close to a shelf where you put other websites in, or maybe it's a village of websites. I don't know.
We're pushing the metaphor far. Shall we go to an example of business vitrines?
Yeah, we're going to show an example of a business with vitrine we love.
Yes.
So we're going to go through the website a bit. This website is
we know this drink very well.
Yeah, because it was in our school. It's a coconut water drink can, and I remember the first time I went on this website. I loved how I was not sure where I was entering, and then I figured out it was a vitrine of a product, basically. But for once, the buy button was not the first thing you would notice.
Yeah,
it was more giving them like
by default it's just the monkey immediately.
Exactly, and you arrive in the middle of the page. You don't arrive top left like most of the websites. You're in the middle of a map
of a very large. It's like beyond the screen.
Yeah, exactly. And you just navigate around, and it's really playful.
It's also really like this e-poster, no? Like interactive poster. That there's not so much clickability. It's just like very flat experience as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's technology-wise, it's very simple as well. It's mostly GIFs.
Yeah.
GIFs, always the same question. GIF.
Yeah.
And illustrations and like small interactions, and you want to dig if there is a little surprise hidden somewhere, if there is because there is so many like illustrations and small interactions, and it moves a bit.
You know what I like about it? Because it also feels like you can just do something else and leave the sound on,
Yeah, because the sound is really nice.
Yeah, exactly.
I liked what you said the other day, if you wondered if...
Oh yeah, if the sound came before, if the music came before, what came first, the music or the graphic design? Okay, enough.
Now we're gonna show institutional school platforms, websites. So those websites are usually the vitrine of a school. And for the example we chose, it's 2 art schools. And so it's the website that's gonna inform the user about the program, about the students, about more practical information about the fees, how to get in, what were they busy with, this kind of things. And so what we like, well, maybe you can start browsing and explain the website.
So first example is Werkplatz. Maybe you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's working at the moment, actually, this website. But basically, the Werkplatz Typography is art school, graphic design, typography, art school in the Netherlands, in Arnhem. And it has usually this vitrine page. So when you enter the school page, there is the first thing you see is the vitrine, and the vitrine is a space for each student to do something. And sometimes it's informational, and sometimes you need, as a user, to understand a bit what's going on. It's maybe a bit more experimental or conceptual, and you have to dig into it to understand what's the project behind. And it's an unlimited space for students to take over. And every time you enter the website, you don't know what's going to happen, where you're going to enter, which is something I really appreciate.
Yeah.
But at the moment, the vitrine, I think, is not working because they have their graduation soon, and it's more like informational.
Yeah. But it's also nice. Like, it looks already so different than how we found it in the last week that we were referring to it.
Exactly. It's really alive, you know?
Yeah.
It's really changing all the time.
It's always different, which is nice. Actually, like, why we chose this as well is because you can, as an educational platform, you can see that there's a contribution from the students and from the staff, which is kind of like what we appreciate about institutional websites, that there is this immediate expression of the publics, like recursive publics, you know, that like everybody is kind of part of the content.
Yeah.
And another example to add up to that, Yale School of Art, which is another website that gives full access to staff and the students. And it also has for each blog or component, it has editor details or any content that can be changed by everybody, which also says like edit access. You have this details like who did it, which is kind of like, I don't know if you know, it's like this fact, the truth about who worked on this content, but it's nice to emphasize this gesture that they all have access to it in the back end. What I also appreciate is that
they mostly changed the background, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So like in the last 1 year or 2 years that I've been looking for masters and considering certain schools, I've been following this website, and it feels like the background, it's always, even like when you give users freedom to access the content, it feels like you can see this like institutional consensus that it doesn't change radically over time, you know, like anything that changed. What changed mostly about this website is the background, which is basically a visual component somehow. But
the containers are just fixed, and maybe they change colors. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Which also makes me wonder, are they busy? Like, do they have classes? Do they have like assessments? And
because this background hasn't changed for a long time, and maybe it makes you wonder, like, what is the state of the students now? Then maybe they don't have time because they're graduating to update this website, which is also a nice thing to think about.
But it's also nice, yeah, exactly. Or do they actually have access to the backend, you know? If it promotes it like on the interface and then kind of promotes this idea of freedom, everybody has access to it. Perhaps it's different in the backend. But I like that there are elements that you can question on the interface about this. So now we are going to switch to educational website, which is not representing an educational institution per se, but they're educational for you and I.
Yeah.
So it's more like the example that we want to show, which is the Creative Independent. It's more like a publishing platform. But you go ahead and say everything about it.
So this is a resource for creatives that is daily nourished with articles or quotes or essays or interviews, basically. The layout is very simple.
Very colorful.
And I remember the first time I discovered the website, it was completely different in terms of landing page. There was a video in the background with snails moving, because snails and spirals are the main graphic element of this website. And now they changed the order, which took me a bit of time to replace, because to have the archive first, because before the archive came second after the homepage. But now instead they added this small button called New Here. So here now it's a letter addressed to people
I think who just still have.
Yeah, I'm just closing the tab. To people who just land on the website for the first time, and it's a welcome note basically, which seemed to have been designed with care, and it has, because it was the 10 years I think of this platform. They celebrated the 10 years or some kind of birthday, And some users just send some really sweet recording thanking the platform to exist, so you can listen to them here. And what I like about the whole platform is that you seem that there is a lot of attention put in language and how they address to the users. It's really, for example, if you arrive at the end of a page, at least back then, there was a little note saying, hey, you just arrived at the end of the page.
Don't get lost, it's just the end.
Exactly. If you want to look at something, it seemed very genuine.
Yeah, it has this tone to it.
Yeah, exactly. And what they say about the design are also like, so if you go on the About page, I just know the URL, but where was it?
Do you have a Chrome extension?
Yes, actually.
Do you have an app on your phone?
I don't have the app. I have the newsletter where basically every day, I think it's every day, maybe. Yeah, I think so. I think you can actually decide when you want to be notified. So they have a daily newsletter or a weekly newsletter. Our types and guides. Do you remember where there was this? No, that's her website. The note about snails. You can read more about our spiraled snail in this note. Voila. If you've been observing our website, you've likely noticed it changed a few times. It will continue to change. Our website is alive. That's already something I think is great, to consider website as living creatures that change over time, because a website is meant to change, because technologies update and it needs maintenance no matter what. And it's great that they embrace it by changing its structure and content. I mean, content obviously, but also like it's the container of the website, you know?
Yeah.
We like spirals because they're about circling back to a core idea over time, something all creative people must do to create whatever it is they are creating.
Yeah. It's a nice one. Well, yeah. There's one thing like about publishing platforms that annoys me sometimes are the filtering options. So like you immediately have like, okay, let's narrow down the content for you, you know? So like you have, and normally they're categorized by their format. So like also here, interviews, essays, guides, focuses. But I like that in all of that seriousness, let's say, they also have just snails.
Yeah.
And it's just a gallery of images and GIFs of snails moving. And you can have a little Zen moment.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we have another example of what we consider as an educational website for the same reason, but maybe more like media oriented? It's called virtualenjoyment.com. And its purpose is to, how did you call it? Like it's a new format of lectures, curating lectures, exactly. And it's very minimal in the design, but I don't want to make remarks about the design. What I like is that once you enter like on homepage, it shows always like only 4 lectures. And then when you click on one, it shows an audio file as the main media media file that they're dealing with. And it takes the whole page of the website. And then when you press anywhere on the screen, it starts playing the lecture.
It's very minimalist.
Yeah, so very minimalist. And then you have this button that gives you an option to actually look. Most of these lectures were on Zoom. And I also kind of like how they deal with this like Zoom fatigue, you know, that they don't use it as the main platform to, although like most of their lectures took place there. and that it's not by default. You can kind of play around with this container, but you don't have
need
to.
It. Yeah.
You can turn it off. But what I mostly like about how they curate the sound as well is that that you have this whole file across the page, and then you have these markers that point out where the lecture starts and where's the Q&A.
Yeah.
Which is something that I also do often when I'm on YouTube or something. Of course, like you skip through the intro and then you just look at the main content, or like you always look for this like climax of the conversation, and then Q&A is like where it ends. You just X the browser, and they do it this like they just kind of put it on the interface. That's obviously this is kind of like something that is very common for the user experience.
And it's also very pleasing that it's not on YouTube with all the noise that YouTube provides you with.
Exactly.
That it's just like this timeline and you have no distraction.
Yeah.
No proposition of what next you can watch apart from the other lectures that are here, but not something that has been calculated from your previous searches.
Yeah.
And also I like that when you click on another one, this timeline moves like a mouth speaking. Yeah. It's very smooth.
Yeah, it's
Love
nice.
it. It's very minimal.
Shall we move to artist portfolios?
Yes.
We have. So what is an artist portfolio actually? That's
a good question, Maisa. So an artist portfolio usually, or like commonly, is design website where you show your works as
archive
of works that are put in order of, like, the most recent works come at the top, and then you can scroll, like a bit like a Tumblr basically, but more designed, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of like it gives eligibility to the artist who is working.
Yeah. And this one is the portfolio of Julia Birens-Dehan, who is a graphic designer working in Switzerland now. And I used to work with her on a project. Then that's when I discovered her website. And I love how she made a sort of digital business card and not showing her work straight away. So you have like this video in the background and some external links here. So if you want to look at a more visual scroll of her projects, you just click here on the PDF and it's going to load a PDF on another page. And in the background, there is this video of her writing her email address with a pen and different handwritings.
Yeah.
There is this like nice, hesitant human gesture, when she's writing, which I think is really beautiful.
Yeah.
And also the video is a bit low quality. It's been filmed in the dark. I wonder if she was like in the bar or something.
Really
she had the idea in the bar and then she was like, okay, let's film it now and put it there.
Yeah.
And it feels like I love how it's cropped and how you feel like you're zooming in. You're a bit like stalking her, trying to see her email address and zooming in and having this snapshot of her email address.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah, what I also like about it is that this PDF is kind of like, because normally you would translate an artist portfolio from PDF version.
Exactly.
That you have, and then you kind of like pump it up with graphic design. You give it the structure that it kind of like repeats itself.
Some fun navigation.
Yeah, exactly, which really is kind of like portfolio. But I also like that their preferred format is to stick to PDF that can be updated, and then the website really becomes kind of like a shelter for the PDF.
Yeah, exactly.
And other small details.
Other links, other external links.
Yeah. We have another example that to both of us, I guess, is also an artist portfolio, although you might not find it as such from the beginning. And it's a website of Audrey Tang. And I think I found some very important facts about this person that I think is worth reading because my brain will not memorize all of this. Audrey Tang is a Taiwanese free software programmer and digital minister of Taiwan. who has been described as one of the 10 greatest Taiwanese computing personalities, according to Wikipedia. Also, according to Wikipedia, in the section of early life, it is written, in 2019, Tang identified as postgender or non-binary, responding to a request regarding pronoun preferences with, what's important here is not which pronouns you use, but the experience about those pronouns. I'm not just non-binary. I'm really whatever, so do whatever. I would also like to read their LinkedIn about, where it's kind of like, it's obviously a different representation of a digital persona. Taiwan's digital minister, previously known for revitalizing the computer languages Perl and Haskell, as well as building the online spreadsheet system EtherCalc in collaboration with Dan Bricklin. In the public sector, I served on Taiwan National Development Council's Open Data Committee and K-12 Curriculum Committee, and led the country's first e-rulemaking project. In the private sector, I worked as a consultant with Apple on computational linguistics, with Oxford University Press on crowd lexicography, and with social text on social interaction design. In the social sector, I actively contribute to Government Zero, a vibrant community focusing on creating tools for the civil society with the call to fork the government. I have so many questions about this person, and obviously there are a lot of achievements.
Mm-hmm.
But I also like the fact that they are already kind of like known across platforms online, and Wikipedia and LinkedIn and YouTube and everywhere, basically a very important person, but that they also still have a website.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's always kind of like the hesitation. Yeah. Do you need a website when you're a digital public persona?
Yeah, if you already have a digital presence.
Yeah, and then like if we talk about artistic portfolios where you kind of like always want to lay out these achievements or like artistic achievements in your history. I like that Audrey Tang has like just a song from Leonard Cohen called Come Healing, which is translated in Chinese as well and English, and it kind of goes across the screen, and it feels like their website is singing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like you would never tell from this, looking at the website alone, who is the maker, you know?
No, for sure.
Or like who it represents. And it's such a simple gesture. And for me, that's also kind of like artistic portfolio, you know, it's the expression. It's like the core of expression, not like the history of achievements. Great. And now we have the section of web art, which, what is that to us? Is kind of like artistic websites that don't have like a clear structural purpose, but are more also going in the direction of artistic expression.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we can go quickly through this one that we discovered recently.
And we discovered it from our website is a room.
This is the website.
Beautiful.
It's just
what are we looking at?
A well-made 3D button with a nice drop shadow when you move your mouse.
Yeah.
And when you click on it, it downloads some HTML, and then you have access to the content of the website, which has been directly downloaded on your machine, on your computer.
So it's like this from the cloud to the local server.
Exactly.
But yeah,
it's quite you can't really read it. It's not very legible because of the color combination. And every time you download it, you get a new color combination.
Yeah.
If we click on this one, still not very legible.
No, you can't really read the text.
No.
And the parts that I also didn't have time to read it because you can just select it. No. Yeah. Not even.
We could read it through inspecting it, but
yeah, but I think it kind of also compares like architecture and web development.
Mm-hmm.
Classic.
Nice metaphor. And what I like about this website is, as we said earlier, a website is meant to vanish at some point.
Mm-hmm.
It's always going to evolve, always going to change. The server might be broken at some point. And here you download the HTML straight away, so you have the website on your computer no matter what, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like also what we talked about, having a book in the bookshelf that you'd never read.
Mm-hmm. And maybe that's why we didn't read it, actually, because we knew it was on our computer.
Exactly. So now let's go to Tell Us, a website I always refer to.
Oh yeah, this one is really nice.
And then it's from Nicholas Jar. So it's a website that he made during the pandemic, and I think he also, next to the website, made like 3 albums in the span of 2 years. In
just
duration
like
of 2 years. Yeah, he was very creatively outputting himself out there. And what I love about this website is that he also chose, I mean, people did start thinking about websites a lot during the pandemic and like what a website can be, and there were all these kind of like, it became more of like an experimental field. And for him as well, I see it as this is kind of like the function is to promote the album called Cenizas. No, Tell Us. Clearly.
Yeah, because it's the URL name. What means parts? Do you know?
Tell Us parts. So basically, I don't know, actually.
Is parts also the name of the album?
No, it's just Tell Us. But then this is kind of like, it's not the full album, but it is kind of like also a visual interface experience of the album. And it's just like, it doesn't have so much function than just hovering and clearing out the dust that comes your way, and then a bit of scrolling, and even some illustrations that were made in collaboration with other makers and the developer, with the illustrator and developer. I forgot their names, unfortunately. But then that's also like, even though there are many interactive parts, it doesn't necessarily urge me to achieve so much on it, you know?
No.
That is just kind of like this light user experience as well.
It's nice also to have another consumption of a website, you know, seeing it like this, and it's just a bit like a screensaver almost.
Yeah, it's really exactly. This one is funny.
Also one you enter like a video game. That's great.
What are we looking at?
So,
a website with nature, animal documentaries, sometimes in slow motion, sometimes fast forward, sometimes natural speed, I guess. But in combination with Matrix soundtracks, right? Yeah. And it works really well because it's very well finely selected content, I would say.
Apparently it's coincidental, but I think the footage that they made on random is...
Yeah, I guess they made a selection of documentaries and then a selection of soundtracks, and then these two are already well curated. That like whatever coincidence happens between like which soundtrack goes for which documentary, it works.
Yeah.
But it's very, it also doesn't have so much function than making you laugh. And,
it's very ironic.
It's very immersive.
Yeah.
And there's not so much interaction besides putting it in full screen, pausing the sounds, pausing everything, and
you see
reloading.
the YouTube channel, and you know when you pause it.
That's a pity. We shouldn't have done that.
I mean, that's not our fault.
We're not saving lives.
No, for sure.
Okay.
But I mean, this kind of website also makes me wonder, like, what's the difference also with a video clip, you know? Because the interaction is not that obvious.
Yeah, like you mean with the YouTube channel. And yeah. That's the thing, like that's... well, isolation from platforms.
Yeah, that's a fine argument to me.
That's also like often a hesitation for a lot of web developers. Why make a website when you can just host it on the main platforms?
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
Which for me is always like, why not make a website exactly for that reason?
Exactly, because that's for sure a valuable reason to not be dependent of these huge platforms.
But still, we can enter another discussion of like, because most of these videos are also embedded from social platforms,
Exactly,
so
they're already hosted somewhere.
Yeah, and I think the only example that we have that is kind of like from this virtual enjoyment, that here the media files are imported with really like technological complexity, that it also makes the website super heavy as well. So there's like all these risks of detaching from the platforms as well.
Yeah.
But more on that later. We have last example. Where is this actually? Looks like France, no?
Looks like Austria or something.
Yeah, the internet is a bit slow. Oh, I didn't see this one.
Yeah, by night.
Also this one I didn't see. Oh,
that's
there,
great.
your favorite.
So basically, this is a website promoting this song called Vivo by Andrea Laszlo De Simone. And to promote this song, they made this website that is compiling also a YouTube channel.
It's very similar to the
previous one, with only webcams around the world that are live recording. So right now we are on the head of an astronaut that's doing some work at the moment. And if you...
Technically maintaining planet Earth.
Yeah. That's great. And when you click here on the remote, you just change
Hollywood
channel.
Beach.
LA. So at night. So it's all live.
Yeah.
This is probably Switzerland. And I remember the day I discovered this website. Again. Great. It took me a while to understand what was going on. Like, what was this video? Because the first video I arrived on the website was this Siberian train going super fast in the snow. And with the music, of course, it was very cinematographic. It was super beautiful. The song works perfectly with like all these landscapes, slow nature.
I never thought of making a website for a song promotion, but like such a specific, like also sound only if you click.
Yeah. It's a subtle way to bring the buy my album.
Yeah. Album, yes, but just the song.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
also
exactly
very
true. And then after understanding what was going on, and then the remote, I clicked on it because there was not so many interactions possible. And then when you realize the quality of the camera, you're like, it's a webcam.
Yeah.
And then you change, and it's at night in some places. Sometimes it's in space. Sometimes
and some don't work. And I also like work. That.
Yeah,
that
me too.
Some webcams are just unavailable
because. Yeah.
I also like the remote control icon.
Yeah.
Such a
old school.
Yeah. Well, let's let it.